I was sitting in a hallway in an iron frame chair for 7 hours after giving birth and having a second-degree tear. My name is Sierra, and I am with Flipping Texas here in Central Texas. I work in the marketing department as well as a designer for the show. I found out I was pregnant on March 11th at around, I'd say 7 or 8 p.m. at night. What was it going on in my life during that time? So, during that time, I had just taken a personal leave of absence from work. I was under a lot of stress and took some time off. I just came back. I had recently moved to Atlanta, Georgia, about a year before that. So I was in a new place and had a lot going on in my life. So I found out I was pregnant roughly 2 weeks before the nationwide shutdown really happened. So it kind of hit around the same time. And because I was also living out of state, didn't have many close friends or family there, I was really concerned with my environment and my safety net of friends and family. That was kind of my biggest concern immediately. So, procedures I took during the pandemic for my pregnancy were not anything very specific to, I imagine, what other people did. I had moved back to Texas during my pregnancy and moved into a house that my family owned. So I was pretty much by myself the whole time, as far as not having to worry about socializing or interacting with other people, taking any type of precautions for health and safety. I was very blessed and fortunate in that aspect. So I got to hang out in the country all by myself and just relax and take some time to really prep for the baby coming. So there was difficulty to finding the doctors during the pandemic. I don't think it was necessarily because of the pandemic, but because of my situation. I had a very specific idea of how I wanted my pregnancy to go, what I wanted my care to look like, as well as the type of delivery I wanted to have. The clinic I was going to in Atlanta was a specialized clinic that just focused on deliveries, and they had a very unique, customizable plan. And when I really came to the conclusion that I was going to move, I was on the hunt and I was doing lots of research, trying to find some places around here locally that I wanted to go to. But most of the providers are within the same hospital network and they have a very strict policy on how they handle things. It's very cookie cutter. And I wasn't excited about that. And the process of going out and meeting doctors or going to birthing facilities was non-existent because of COVID and the restrictions to go into facilities just because you wanted to or you wanted to take a tour. So before COVID, I'm not sure what all the restrictions were, but I do know that my first appointment, they had already put, different types of practices in place for, health and caution. So we were required to wear masks to our appointment, and we did have to check in and go through a waiting period and make sure that certain people, number of people in the clinic, were moved out, so capacity restrictions. And I was only allowed to bring one support partner with me per visit. So I could change it up each visit, but in any given single appointment, I could only have one partner with me. So I would say the thing that I was concerned with most because of the pandemic that kind of kept me up at night was I had heard of stories where in other countries parents were being separated from their kids if they had come down with COVID, and kind of like a either like a government or medically enforced quarantine away from their children. And the thought of giving birth, and then if I did, come in contact with the virus and get sick, that my child would be taken away from me. I didn't hear any stories of it happening in the United States, but, you know, at the time we didn't really know where the pandemic was going and what was going to happen. And it could have accelerated, or, it could have done exactly what it did and just kind of, level itself. And then, we just didn't really know what was going to happen. Yes, so I had to take a COVID test when I was going into labor. So I was a week late past my due date. So my delivery and going into the hospital was all scheduled. So I had a rapid test done 2 days before my scheduled induction at the hospital. So once they got the results in, they got them in literally the morning that I was going in and getting registered into the hospital. My partner also had to have a test done as well, and which was great because that allowed us to be mask free in our room during the delivery and post delivery. So we found out the gender through a genetic testing called NIPS. It's a non-invasive prenatal screening that we had done through our provider in Atlanta. It's essentially a screening to check for very specific genetic conditions, and along with that, they're able to check the DNA of the child to see what sex they are. I have always wanted to have a boy for my first child, and as soon as I found out I was pregnant, within 3 days, my partner and I already had a name picked out, and we picked out a boy's name. We started talking about a girl's name. That conversation literally lasted about 90 seconds, but we were like, we just know that it's going to be a boy, right? And sure enough, we got the test done, and we were able to find out as early as 11 weeks what the sex was, and it was a boy. Sure. So I typically run a little bit more on the holistic side of health and wellness. And I had always envisioned trying to do a birth as natural as possible. I wasn't 100% sold on the idea of doing a water birth, but the clinic I was originally going to, my doctors had given me pretty much full range of whatever I wanted to do, and they had the ability to set up a water birth in the hospital, which from all of my research is supposedly the safest and most reliable way to do a water birth, so that if there are complications, you're already in, a high quality medical facility. But once I ended up switching doctors and moved across the state line, I then quickly had to just conform to whatever my options were. And the hospital that's here local has less options, and they have a little bit more conventional method of doing things. So I didn't quite get to have my 100% natural birth that I wanted to go for. Because my my delivery was scheduled, everything was very systematic. We had the COVID testing done 2 days before. They had had it scheduled first thing in the morning. So I just didn't eat the night before, came, checked in at 7 a.m. and by 9:30 they were starting the induction. I still hadn't had any contractions. I wasn't dilated at all. So I didn't go through that, cinematic experience of my water broke or I'm having contractions and you're screaming down the road telling your partner, you drive faster, drive faster. So my experience was pretty laid back. It was very systematic and it was very, very easy. Once we got there, the staff was so unbelievably welcoming. They were very informative, and they really genuinely seemed concerned with making sure that all your questions were answered, you felt comfortable. So once I got there and I said, all right, let's get this party started, there weren't any problems. All my apprehension was gone. For us and most everyone else that I've heard of, they're only allowed to have one partner or one person in the room with them, and that's for the entire stay. So the father came and he checked in with me. He stayed with us the whole time. He was allowed to leave the campus, a hospital campus, if he needed to go get food or clothes or anything like that, and come back, but we weren't allowed to let him leave and then someone take his place. So it was just that one person. They were registered and that was the only person allowed. Specifically in the hospital, if we ever left our room, of course we needed to wear a mask if we were walking the halls and things like that. They took a lot of precaution in the postpartum ward, where any mothers that were currently diagnosed with COVID were housed in a completely different area. So our entire ward was COVID-free. During the pandemic and being pregnant, my biggest piece of advice would be keep your family and your support system close to you. In whatever way is comfortable and seems right for you and your family. So for myself, my parents, they live 10 minutes down the road. My grandparents literally live a mile down the road. They're maybe 2-minute drive. And it was nice to have them close by, being able to check in and have conversation with them frequently throughout the week. And it just didn't feel so isolated during an isolated and scary and unsure time. And then also having that balance of trust, but also your own initiative for education, of trusting the doctors, but also doing your own research, listening to other moms' stories, knowing what's going on in your area, because the numbers of the pandemic were very specific to territories in the region and across the country. So what's happening somewhere else may not really impact your experience. So, just being informed, but also trusting the medical community to the point where you're not stressing out, that they're doing, the best that they can to make sure that you're healthy and safe, and just hold close to your family and friends. Oh, well. So postpartum care, because the pandemic, I believe, was or is where a major hole in the healthcare system is right now. And I would imagine it is that way for a lot of other areas of medical conditions or concerns. So for example, within 24 hours of going home after giving birth, I was put back into the emergency room for acute congestive heart failure. And it was simply due to the amount of swelling that I had from giving birth, which is very common, but my body was having a hard time managing the fluid. So troubles breathing, trouble with heart palpitations and things like that. But to make sure that I didn't have any other major serious issues, they put me into the emergency room. When I was there, once I got assessed and taken back into the back part of the emergency department. I was sitting in a hallway in an iron frame chair for 7 hours after giving birth and having a second degree tear, as well as whatever my body was going through postpartum, because there were no rooms available, or at least that's what I was told. Basically, all across the country, they're reserving rooms for when they have patients come in with COVID or suspect COVID, so that they can isolate them from the rest of the population and prioritize them coming in. But because of that, myself and many other people have had not the quality of care and processing that they need to, be taken care of. My baby now, he is absolutely amazing. We, of course, had a little bit of a rough start. Went back into the ER. I had mastitis, which, because of not getting proper care, I had to fight off on my own, and my milk supply just tanked. I mean, it was gone. It took me 3 weeks to get it back up, and I was nervous because I thought I was going to have to go to formula. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me personally, I wanted to fulfill that kind of natural mother interaction with my child of feeding him, and if at all possible, if it was in my control, make sure that he did get breast milk. So it was very challenging. Then he was diagnosed with acid reflux and sensitivity to lactose, and it was tough. The first, I would say, nearly 3 months were very, very challenging, and it was difficult for us to get out and do things. And because of what was going on with COVID, still to this day, you can't go do as many things as you wanted, you could do in the past. Now that he was out of the womb, we knew that according to the studies, he was much more protected inside the womb. But now that he was out in the open and exposed, we didn't have as much data on, children as to what would happen to them if they were exposed to COVID. So we did take a little bit different precautions once he was born. And I would say in the last 2 months, the experience with him has just blossomed, and he's, discovering his feet and crawling around and all of that great stuff. So he's really getting to enjoy life, and he's such a joy for the family. And he just started seeing a sitter now that I'm back at work and working hard on Flippin' Texas and Red Belly Media. So he's really enjoying that. We did take a little bit of precaution before putting him into a full-size daycare. He is seeing a private sitter with a very small number of children, so that's a little bit more of a controlled environment. But yeah, he's doing really great. Hey guys, I'm Sierra with Flippin' Texas and Red Belly Media. Thanks for tuning in and listening to my story. Be sure to check out all of our future shows on Flipping Texas and Red Belly Media coming out. Lots of great information and lots of laughs for sure. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.